This talk that is about to be presented is Inside the Information Stealer Ecosystem from Compromise to Countermeasure with Olivier and Eric. So they're ready, so we'll hand over the time.
One other announcement that didn't make the list. Piano Bar Con is actually going to happen tonight if they leave the piano upstairs.
Piano bar time?
Piano Bar Con.
Piano Bar Con.
Yeah, the fundraiser.
All right, there's a fundraiser tonight, Piano Bar Con at the piano bar, I guess. Okay, so we have a packed presentation for you today. So we're going to get started right away, but I'm super happy. This is my first ShmooCon, and I've heard that it's going to be the last. I'm in Montreal, and I've heard so many great things about this event. I'm stoked to be here. A little bit stressed, but that will end soon. Okay, so we are, Eric and I, so the point of this slide here is that we can show that we can both cross arms. We can move on. Today's agenda is going to be, this is small, let me just get that bigger. All right, so we're going to talk about what is information stealer malware, because not everyone is aware of it, so we have a good amount of time spent on explaining the risks and everything. We're going to go through infection vector analysis via a victim screenshot. So this is a very intimate way to see like victims, their desktop, and how they got hacked or infected. We're going to talk about the red line takedown, which happened last October. Then we're going to move to beyond credentials. So we're very familiar with the content of stealers, but what else is in there? And we're going to close with defense and mitigation strategies, and we have a couple of community gifts for you. So Eric, why don't you start?
All right, good morning everybody. So I'm gonna start with an exercise. How many of you have saved credentials in your browser? Like if I logged onto your computer right now. Okay, so when I asked this at DEF CON, nobody raised their hands. All liars. So I'm glad to hear it. And how many of you have downloaded cracked software? And you can be honest. All right, so you're all infected. So to start with, InfoStealer malware at a basic level is a type of malware. It's a remote access Trojan that infects a computer and steals all of the credentials saved on the computer. It also steals session cookies, browser history in some cases, sometimes files on the computer. These get exfiltrated to command and control infrastructure, and then threat actors end up distributing these in the cybercrime ecosystem. Now, there's actually multiple ways that info stealers can bypass multi-factor authentication that we're going to be talking about today. But the really critical thing you know is that it can bypass multi-factor authentication. So what does a stealer log look like? You know, it's one thing, it's a kind of a hard concept to get across to people sometimes because it's very abstract, like, oh, it steals all of this information off your computer. But on the left-hand side, you're going to see you have autofill. So this is the data you save in your browser. When when you save your social security number so you don't have to take the really painstaking time to fill that out again. When you save your cookie, or when you remember this credential for cookies, Discord, installed browsers, so it actually looks for multiple browsers on the computer. Processes.txt, they need this to be able to recreate your system with an anti-detect browser. That is all, this is kind of like that high-level stealer overview. Now the center pane is the passwords file, and this is fake passwords. We're not doxing anybody here. I filled these in myself, but you'll see here too. Notice the red line advertisement. Even in the passwords file, they're actually advertising their malware, which is a really interesting thing. And we're going to talk about this a lot. There's an economic component to this. The same thing that allowed you to get Starbucks this morning is also driving a probably $100 million malware ecosystem, which is capitalism. Finally, we have the session cookies file, and this is really, really critical because this is how threat actors, at least one way that threat actors can use info stealers to bypass two-factor authentication. They can replay session cookies in a browser. Usually they use a special type of browser called an anti-detect browser, and then they can gain direct access to applications. So this is how cyber attacks used to happen, or at least a common way that people think they happen, and this is how they happen today. If you're a threat actor, you want to make money. This is your primary driving force in life. How do I make money with the easiest thing in the world? Developing niche exploits is not the easiest thing in the world. Finding credentials to corporate applications or bank accounts, as the case may be, is much, much easier. And there's probably over 1,000 Telegram channels that are currently giving out stealer logs, either sold or paid. So let's talk about the info stealer economy. Unfortunately, it's getting like 10% easier every year for somebody to be a threat actor. This is again, the driving force of capitalism, the same reason it's easy for you to get Starbucks. It's easy for you to become a threat actor. Don't do it though. But you'll see here we have 3 different malware advertisements. So we have Atomic Stealer. This is looking at Mac OS devices. Notice, and these are selling the malware. So this is threat actors selling malware to other threat actors. Notice with Atomic OS, it's $1,000 a month, and it's because this is the only Mac OS info stealer. All other info stealers work on Linux, they work on Windows, but Mac is unique, so they can get a higher price for it. Notice in the middle here, we have Redline. We're going to be talking a lot about Redline in this presentation, but Redline info stealer grabs a lot of information. It's one of the most popular info stealers. It's usually about $200 a month to buy. And then on the right, we actually have an info stealer variant that I've never seen before in the wild, but notice the marketing. Like they use emojis, like they're really going in. They're telling you this is a great info stealer, you should buy it. So, how are info stealers distributed? There's a lot of different ways that it happens. We actually found a guide, and we're going to be showing you some great screenshots from the guide. But this is one way that threat actors distribute info stealers. So they get the malware, they buy it from a malware as a service vendor on Telegram or the dark web forum. They create a video, free cracked Adobe Photoshop. They take over a YouTube account, or they buy a taken over YouTube account. They upload the video to the taken over YouTube account with a link in the description, and then they advertise it on TikTok and Google Ads. And then they collect their logs from people who download the malware. So, this is directly from the guide. This guide we're pretty sure was translated out of Russian into English. What is a title? So this is the threat actor telling people, how do you title your YouTube video? It's simple. This is an enticing name for an advertisement. We'll lure the furry ones, and the furry ones in this case are the victims, and we don't know why they're the furry ones, but they're the furry ones. How do you do a title to lure the furry ones? Elon Musk shocked the people. Elon Musk said, how to get 0.2 Bitcoin. But don't let the furry ones evaporate your money. This is really important. If you let Google Ads automatically set a cost per click on your stolen credit card, it's really bad. So we have to put a limit on the cost per click, or the furry ones will evaporate your money. So once the threat actors collected their stealer logs, what do they do with it? Well, typically they're going to sell it in Telegram. You see a few different examples. I call these Costco free sample channels. If you've ever been to Costco, or Trader Joe's for the Americans here, you'll see there's like free samples, and they want you to buy the free sample, right? You take the free sample, you're like, oh, this is like amazing waffles, and then you go buy their waffles. Threat actors have the same concept. So they'll have free Telegram channels where actually the vast majority of stealer logs are distributed, where they're giving out free samples of stealer log, they're stealing other threat actors' stealer logs, and then they have paid channels. So it's a $200, $300 monthly subscription to be a paid channel, and then you'll notice some of them really go all in on the branding. Like they've got like the casino vibrant colors, the lifetime license, which I would, if I was a threat actor, I would not trust another threat actor to buy a lifetime license, but that's just me. And so finally, where do high-value logs go? So not all stealer logs are the same, right? Most cases, and this is really important, the vast majority of use cases for stealer logs are consumer account takeover. So threat actors aren't looking through stealer logs for like Okta credentials or like corporate credentials, because those are complicated attacks. They're looking for Bank of America. They're looking for Binance. They're looking for crypto wallets. They're looking for all of these types of things. But a certain subset of logs does have corporate access. In fact, millions of logs have corporate access if you aggregate it out. And these do go into the cybercrime ecosystem. And so you'll see distribution on dark web forums, Russian market, Telegram channels. But initial access brokers do look for stealer logs. Initial access brokers are a type of threat actor that essentially gains initial access to systems and then resells it. So IABs do look through stealer logs to get initial access. Now, how many of you have seen Breaking Bad? By show of hands. All right, we have a cultured audience. How many of you remember this scene from Breaking Bad? And don't worry, I'll explain it to you if you don't. Okay, so we have a few really cultured audience. So in this scene, we have Badger, who's on the right, and he is trying to sell meth. And on the left, we have a cop. He's an undercover cop, though. And Badger, Badger is not the most legally knowledgeable individual. So he goes, if you ask a cop if he's a cop, he's obligated to tell you it's in the Constitution. This is what the cop tells him. So Badger then says, are you a cop? The cop says no. Badger sells him the meth, and then he gets arrested. So you may think that nobody would ever actually do this. But we actually saw this in the wild. A threat actor, can you prove you're not a Fed real quick? Sure, bro, what do you need? So basically, just send me a voice message saying you're not a Fed. That's it. Bro, I don't have AV on my computer. It's bad for OPSEC. You got a phone? All you need to do is call me and say you're not a Fed. That's it. The dude was fixated on the idea that if we called him and said we're not a Fed, it means we're not Feds. So how do infections happen? So each of these is a screenshot taken from a victim. We've anonymized them, so we're not doxing anybody. But so each of these is a separate screenshot, the InfoStealer malware grabbed from the victim computer. And that's really important. And we kind of collage them together to tell you a story of how an infection happened. So first, somebody decides to search for Midjourney, common AI image generation application, right? I'm sure many of you have used it. It operates through Discord. Totally legitimate search. This user was also infected, but probably on a different browser tab. They find Midjourney. They're like, oh, get the latest updates, Midjourney, from this ai-midjourney.org site. This looks totally legitimate. Looks very legitimate. Threat actors actually put a lot of effort into this, although do notice this may trigger your antivirus if you download it warning there, but you know, it looks like a legit site. There's like images and stuff. They downloaded it. They're like, okay, execute it, midsetup.exe. You know, Midjourney operates through Discord, so it's a little weird. You have to download and execute Midjourney, but such is life. Disable antivirus and try again. Oh man, this is using a lot of space on my computer. Like there's a lot of CPU usage going on here. I wonder what it's doing. How to disable Bitdefender antivirus 2023. I better turn off Windows protection at the same time just to make sure I can use my Midjourney. It's still using a lot of processes and it's not working. I can't seem to generate any images. AI Midjourney or virus? Finally, I better delete everything because this is just really not working out for me. So that's how you go from free Midjourney to triple extortion ransomware attack. By the numbers, this gives you kind of an overview of the Stealer log ecosystem. We see about 1.4 million logs a week distributed in the ecosystem, about 65 million total logs that we've identified, roughly 7 million, probably more, but like we can attribute 7 million almost certainly contain corporate credentials, and they're responsible for many of the major breaches that you see in the news. With that, we do have two left here. So one of the interesting things, though, is threat actors infect each other with InfoStealers. In fact, they'll often seed Stealer logs with InfoStealer. And so we have two examples here, because we were curious. How do threat actors actually use InfoStealers? Like, what is the, like I'm a threat actor. What do I do with the Stealer log? Do I look through every credential in it? No. Interestingly, they have specialized workflows. So this threat actor got infected with InfoStealer. He targets consumer bank accounts. Like, that's it. That's all he does. He targets consumer bank accounts. And you can actually see in his browser history, Bank of America sign in, Bank of America redirect, Bank of America make transfer, Bank of America add account, Bank of America transfer, Bank of America sign out. And this gives you kind of an idea. So a threat actor who's using InfoStealers, they use a checker, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but they essentially go through the InfoStealers, they look for very specific credentials they know how to make money off of, and it's just a numbers game at that point for them. Now the other one here is very interesting, and I had ChatGPT come up with these titles. I'm not nearly this creative. The Heartstring Hacker. But this user was based in Nigeria and focused on hacking Facebook and WhatsApp accounts. Also had credentials to dating sites and crypto exchanges. So we can't make like a definitive determination here, but he very well could have been a romance scammer who was using Stealer logs as the way to get the accounts that he could then romance scam on. So we actually found hundreds of these. We were able to turn them all over to law enforcement, which was a great feeling. But these are two kind of poignant examples of threat actors can get really creative. Some of them do banks, some of them do romance scams. We saw dozens of other use cases where there was one that was taking over Netflix accounts, and he literally had 200 Netflix accounts saved on his device, and he was just like changing the email with them and then reselling them. So the use cases can be very varied. With that, I will turn it over to my colleague Olivier.
Thank you. So now that we know what Stealer logs are, let's focus on the Redline meta takedown that happened recently. So it was back in October 2024, as reported by Bleeping Computer, but they built their own Operation Magnus website with a little video. How did people get infected and how did we get in touch with Redline? It was, for us, the investigation started with free Windows 11 updates that were malicious. But Redline was being distributed via a lot of different mechanisms, including cracks for games and or software like 3D Studio or Photoshop, Illustrator, mobile app clones, masquerading as popular application as well, like Visual Studio, and everything distributed via Google Ads or YouTube video. A classic YouTube strategy is like you have the crack in the YouTube video, a link outside of YouTube. You download it, the YouTube video explains it, how to use it, including disabling AV, then you get infected. But also an infection mechanism that they use that is interesting is, so Eric talked to us about the private and the public stealer logs, so like the free samples. So inside these free samples, they would include executable files of InfoStealer malware so that people trying the thing for free would get infected and then had their credential breached. So it's pretty evil, but you know, bad guys are after bad guys all the time. How do we say that Redline and Meta are connected together? So first, it was because they were similar looking. Like the content extracted was the same, the structure was the same, the ASCII art was similar. But then when we had access to the builder or the control panel, then the similarity like continued, right? Everything looks the same ugly colors and custom interfaces. But eventually what sealed the deal is that the executables were signed by the same signing certificates. So then, you know, it becomes hard to be against the fact that they were the same group. Redline and Meta is a pretty traditional information stealer malware, and this is the feature set that it has, and very classic of what Eric talked about before. For us, we saw 13.5 million InfoStealer. This is what we have access right now at work in our database. So that's a lot of infected people. Just how much market share it had. So this is our telemetry on information stealer. So these events are only information stealer logs that we have in our database. And the big blue jump that you see in the animation is Redline. So Redline was by far the largest group in 2023 and still very active in 2024, but it started trickling down near the end of 2024 and taken down in October. This is what the builder looks like. So again, with the ugly interface. There's a lot of screenshots that were released as well on the Operation Magnus page if you're interested in more of how it looked like. Now the timeline for the takedown, we first encountered it in 2022, and then we collaborated with ESET to help us regarding the reverse engineering and also the telemetry, their collection capabilities. And so this is with them that we were able to get a hold of the control panel. And in April 2023, we, private companies, attempted the first takedown. So why were we able to do a takedown? It's because they were using the same code signing certificate for both the control panel and the malware they were building. So because of that, one revocation of a certificate revoked or neutered all of the threat, including affiliates, would then get super pissed off after the vendor, the malware builder. So that's good for us, disruption like that. Then what they did is that they introduced a dead drop resolver for the licensing in the control panel, so no longer signed certificate, or actually they created another fake company, they got another certificate, they signed the executable, but it didn't matter to gather that certificate at that point because they were no longer relying on it for the control panel. And for the malware, they could always rotate certs or avoid signing entirely. So now we were after the next failing point or single point of failure of their operation, and which was the GitHub dead drop resolver. So this is basically an encrypted blob available on GitHub, a hard-coded URL. If you decrypt this, you get a list of IP, and this is the command and control infrastructure. So this is how they decided to build it. What they didn't realize is that this, again, was a single point of failure because it was one URL that we needed to take down and the whole thing stopped working. The license validation stopped working, which means the control panel doesn't work, which means that people who are buying the tool, it no longer works and they are mad and then they go yell at the malware provider. So this is what happened. I think they didn't anticipate GitHub to be collaborative, but they really are. So thanks to them, that was taken down. The whole thing was disrupted again. Now, with customers mad at you, they reacted really quickly this time. So they rebuilt a version and using Pastebin as a dead drop resolver instead. So I guess they hoped that Pastebin would collaborate less, which turned out not to be the case. So we were able to take it down again over there. But so, thank you. So The whole timeline is like, so we're talking like May 2024 regarding like the GitHub and the Pastebin being taken down. And then what they started using is they started buying expired domains, relatively youngly domains that were no longer renewed, so you can buy them. It has history and a reputation. So it's kind of hard for us to detect that. And we entered like whack-a-mole mode. And at this point, for us, we kind of lost interest. It was more efficient for us to go after easier targets to take down. And this was when, you know, law enforcement clearly picked it up and said, okay, we're taking care of this. Then we didn't hear about it for like most of 2024. And then in October, we learned that it was taken down. I initially intended to put in the whole video. It's a 1-minute video of the Operation Magnus takedown, and you can see all of the law enforcement collaborators that are there. But the sound doesn't work, so I'm going to skip the video, but I advise you should go and check. But the one joke, so the 1 minute was for the one joke. In the video, it's very tongue-in-cheek what they built, law enforcement, but they have a moment where they list all of the collaborators, because they do it like if they're friends with them. But they list all of the collaborators, and they say these are our VIPs, where VIP means very important to the police. So what's good is, since they operated that, they have the firm names of all of these affiliates, and now they can go after all of them, or they can, you know, we have a list of them as well, so we can monitor them also. So, you know, it's a very bad day for the bad guys when stuff like that happens. Video was here. Oh, it works. Oh, but the sound is only on my computer. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah. Do we have the minute? I think we're good on time.
Yeah, we're okay.
That's right. Let's try again.
This is the final update for Redline and Meta. This update has been made in partnership with international law enforcement. We gained full access to all Redline
I mean,
and Meta servers.
it's 1 minute. We can do it.
They're actually pretty much the same.
So
This version of Redline
it's kind of bragging about features, right? This is what I like. It's so bold to do that after the cyber criminals. So lots of screenshots of everything going on.
Much more. All the Redline and Meta source code, including the license servers, REST API servers, panels, stealers, and Telegram bots. VIP
Sorry for
status
people on the
all
stream.
Redline and Meta users. Where
So yeah,
VIP means
very important to the police.
Thank you
So
for
that's it.
installing this update. We are looking forward to seeing you soon.
I mean, so at first I liked the vulnerability logos when we started doing that, you know, with Heartbleed and stuff, but these takedown videos are actually beating everything, right? So please continue the police to do cool videos like that. I want more. All right, so I wanted to dig deeper into StealerLog and go beyond the compromised credentials. And so this is the result of that research. So there are file harvester modules. So all documents are under documents folder and desktop are stolen. So documents, spreadsheets, text files, everything that is small, right? You have to think that they are uploading this live on Telegram or on other CNC. So they won't go after like ISO or VMware VM images. So everything that is small and has PII or anything juicy, they will collect. So here is an example, and it's a French-speaking person, so I was immediately drawn to the log. And so it's a bunch of documents, like you see, there's a resume in there and stuff like that. That's, I like blurred a real one. I'm not asking ChatGPT to fake stuff like Eric is doing.
So for those of you who save your credentials in Word browsers, you're also compromised.
Yes, password, spreadsheets, you know,
doesn't work.
They're in there, so. And so this is the victim's computer at the moment, and the highlight here is that we're talking about Adobe Illustrator crack.exe. So again, crack software, no longer cool to do in this day and age. Then next up was like MFA. I was like, okay, we have an authenticator Chrome extension in a StealerLog. And I was like, could it work to generate MFA codes? Let's try. So I looked in the log, and it's a LevelDB database. So it's kind of, think of like SQLite, but for Chrome extensions. And so it is like openable in an X editor or, you know, text editor, and you'll see some content in it. The content looks like this, so it's a JSON file, and it has like account and then parameters for the TOTP being the MFA generator, and then you have secret, and the whole secret is there. And I was like, what? Does it mean that it could work? So I went on and tried to reproduce it. So what I did is I installed the same extension. I created a QR code for a TOTP thing. Then I went in my own browser extension folder, extracted the file like the malware can do, no admin access required. It's just a user space file under your own privileges, which is normal and expected. In there, I extracted the secret. Then I used the web-based TOTP generator, put in the same secret, and since the clock were synchronized, I was able to generate the same TOTP token every time as in my browser. So this means that everyone who got this thing stolen, the MFA is no longer, like it is multi-factor, but it is compromised. Both of them are compromised. It's a pretty interesting finding, I find. And I was like, okay, but this is probably a niche authenticator, like it's not something very common. I've never heard of this before. Nope, it turns out it's the top one authenticator if you look at the Chrome extension store. Chrome Authenticator, it's the first one, and it has to store the secret. This had to work. It's not surprising, but still, when you think of it, you're like, maybe my secret should be outside of my browser. For all of the targeted browser extensions, and there are many of them which I won't go over in this presentation, they're all stored under the local or synced extension folder. So I provided the folder here so that you can investigate your own Chrome extensions if you think they are at risk of being stolen or not. The path of the extension ID is hard-coded in the malware. So the malware will have like a list of 10 or 20 paths that it's going to look at and extract. You can inspect the level DB file with a tool from an IR firm that I listed here. So if you want to do investigation, strings are verbatim, but if you have integers, then you'll need this tool. What else is there? So password manager, browser extensions is also in there. And I looked at Bitwarden in this specific example. The most malware family will go after all profiles of all browsers for these. So no matter if you use a separate profile, you're at risk. And I looked at the files and I was like, oh, can I have this secret stuff unencrypted? Well, fortunately for us, no. Bitwarden has logs. It can lead you to some evidence, but all of the strings are encrypted at the individual level, including metadata that you would think would not be encrypted. Like username are encrypted, URLs are encrypted, so good job, Bitwarden. And they are encrypted with their like hashMAC thing. Like this turned into a CTF for many of us at the organization. And we didn't manage to crack the scheme, so it's well done. Which means that browser extensions are not at risk, at least Bitwarden. So I started looking at others. In the case of Dashlane, I found no content whatsoever in the log, which means everything is just HTTPS transaction with the cloud service. And for KeePassXC, so KeePassXC, you can have a KeePass database vault on your machine, but you can use the browser extension to communicate with the vault. And same here, only the configuration to reach out to the KeePass server was in the config, nothing else. So no risk there. Next, I started looking at password vaults. So the file grabber that we talked about before will go after the KeePass vaults, and it collects them. And these are small files, but with highly valuable content. Turns out that they are not altered at all. There's no memory dump with the key in it, so it's not a high risk. But the risk is that if your master password is somewhere in your browser password database, or if it's easy to crack offline, then you could be at risk. And I wanted to confirm that this was possible. Like I tried to reproduce what the threat actor would do. And so John the Ripper has a tool that will convert your KeePass database and extract only the hash portion, including its configuration, because it's a PBKDF2 format, and you can customize a couple of parameters, including the hash technique. So this is all extracted by John the Ripper's tool. And then this hash is a format that is crackable by both Ashcat and John. So you could machine try to crack those vaults. So again, a risk here, but not too bad. A risk, I think, worth taking. Then I found about Google Master Cookies. And I was like, I've never heard of that before. What is that? So it turns out that it's a long blob of base64 encoded stuff. But then when I asked to the CTI folks in our organization, they told me, the C2, some C2 provider will provide a tool that if you put that in, it will generate session cookies that will work for Google applications. So this is kind of a master seed, and there's an algorithm. So Google, you know, Google never revoked your session, almost never. So this is probably what they use, and they don't want to change it because this would mean probably, and I'm just making like hypothesis here from my application security background, but I think that changing this technique would involve revoking all of the sessions of Google users at the same time. So they're not willing to do that, right? Understandably. So here it is, and it's pretty powerful, right? So this is something, again, interesting. I linked to the folks from Field Effect who shared a screenshot of such a tool that will generate the session cookies. And I was like, okay, is there anything else? And so what it will go after is like configuration for software that traditionally has username and password, so FTP clients, stuff like that. And it goes after lots of crypto stuff. So Binance, Phantom, XDeFi Wallet, MetaMask, all of these things, Electrum, Discord, Telegram, AnyDesk, VPN stuff, Azure tokens. So it will basically slurp all of it. And this is by malware family. This is not, you know, a one-size-fits-all thing, risk. But so also cookies, and Eric talked about the cookies earlier. But so cookies are fascinating because they're you know, you're basically authenticated instantly if you can reproduce the right set of context. But I was like, this is too hard to do by like the layman cyber criminal, you know, the Costco level cyber criminal. So then I asked the team, what do they do, right? And
yeah, so this is where capitalism comes back into play. We have this is called a checker. And what a checker does is you can upload 1,000, or a threat actor can upload 1,000, 10,000 Stealer logs to it. And they say, I want this specific type of active session cookie. So I want active session cookies for Netflix, as an example. And the checker is going to iterate through all the Stealer logs that got uploaded to it. And it's going to say, here's 15 active session cookies for Netflix accounts. And they can put in custom ones as well. So it's not just like preset. Like you'll see they have like preset ones to make it really easy. But then they also have, you know, you can put in your custom URLs as well. And so this is actually how the two threat actors that we showed you earlier got infected, is they downloaded BL Tools Checker with the cool logo. And somebody had seeded a cracked version of BL Tools with an info stealer and they distributed it on dark web forums. So there were hundreds of threat actors who got infected who were using Stealer logs, and they all got infected through this because typically this is also a license. It's licensed under malware as a service. You know, a threat actor pays $100, $200 a month, and they get access to BL Tools. And so the threat actors who tried to circumvent the licensing got infected by another very clever threat actor who decided to infect those criminals. Now, what was also interesting, this is kind of an aside, is like 50% of the threat actors were smart enough to use a VM, and the other 50%, like it was like their personal computer. So like they just downloaded this on their personal computers with like 50,000 Stealer logs, and you know, they had like all their personal stuff and then all their criminal stuff, and it was all mixed together. So. Yep.
They are bad against each other. All right, so what now? Defense and mitigation, quickly. So we think antivirus is doing its best, right? They're not like being lazy here. They do have detection and they follow. It's a very hard problem to tackle, the malware problem. But we think that publication and focus is more about state threat actors. They're like information stealer malware infected millions of people in the last year, and it's a threat that is, you know, going up and up. Yet AV still doesn't publish too much about it. We think operating system vendors could do better, like Windows pushing for recall, where like the Stealer log ecosystem is just gonna implement recall and just extract even more secret and PII out of it. So it's like, come on, Windows, you can do better than that. And then Chrome, Google did application-bound encryption. And this is a very concrete defense in-depth defense mechanism that I want to go deeper into. So application-bound encryption, basically, the data files are now encrypted, and there's an elevated service running as admin who will handle the exchange with the files. So a broker before the encrypted files. So it can protect the data. Now, we've seen the news. Well, those of us following this closely saw the news. It got bypassed like almost instantly. And so the industry was like, this is bad. But I want to convince you that this is not as bad as it sounds, okay? So we're going to cover the bypass technique quickly. But basically, these are the technique. You launch a headless Chrome with remote debugging. You attach to the debugger, and then you access the thing, right? You are the legitimate Chrome process. You're just debugging it, and you use this as a trapdoor. Or you can dump memory. So you can, dump memory of the process, but this requires admin privileges, whereas before, it was just file I/O on unencrypted SQLite files. You can also, another interesting bypass technique is you interact with the elevated service using COM_object, and you impersonate Chrome. So this is not too hard to do, and you get the full thing as if it was Chrome. There's also registry keys. So you can change a registry key and then kill the process and restart Chrome, and then you will be able to access, basically, it will start using the file unencrypted. But so, what I wanna say why it doesn't matter, it's because of telemetry. So we went from its file on disk, and there's no log for like all file I/O, right? So for EDR vendors, for AV, they need to track all of that stuff. It's very noisy. So now we went from like just file I/O to like either it requires admin, or you need to launch a process with specific command line parameters that are easy to detect by EDR. Or you need to rely on memory offset, which are gonna be per browser, per version. So it means that the problem is a lot harder to track. So I think that we were quick to blame Google for a bad feature. I think this achieved the defense in depth that it meant to do, and now we can do hunting on those specific artifacts instead of just waiting to see what was gonna happen on the file system. So, and this also will help IR firms because it leaves more traces. So for IR cases, it's going to help. Another defense thing I want to put some emphasis on, like corporate credentials, you can monitor for them in Stealer logs, and then you can test. So, if like a lot of the breaches happen because of compromised credential, if you are looking for those credentials and you are acting on them, like testing your corporate accounts, making sure that they don't work, then you're faster than the bad actors and you prevented costly incidents, right? So I think this is another thing that can be done that prevents the Stealer log plague. Now, we're gonna wrap up here, but I promised community contributions. I'm an open source guy, so I like to give gifts to conference attendees. So what we did is we have two things for you here today. We have a credential testing script in PowerShell that will test credentials against Entra ID, the new name for Azure AD. It will basically test MFA, no MFA. It will give you like what you can do. If it will give you the URL to do an account reset if you're authenticated to Azure. So if you scan that QR code, you can have access to the script. And we are also giving you a sample set of Stealer logs, okay? For me, Stealer log, when I had my first zip in my file, in my hands, it changed everything. Like, it's easy to read about Stealer log on blogs, but when you open that zip file and go through the stuff, you realize how intimate this is with the person's computer. You have access to a broad range of all of what they do, the bank they deal with, their home address, where the hotels they go to, the travel agency that they deal with. It's a very intimate thing, and I want everyone to have that feeling. So what we did here in order to avoid ruining the life of real victims is we caught some bad guys, as you heard before. So we're giving bad guys info Stealer logs here. So little risk of them going after us, right? And so, unfortunately, due to the sensitive nature of both Stealer logs and scripts that allow you to test any account on Azure, we are putting this behind an affiliation requirement. So I have you to tell me that you work for an organization that I trust, and then we will send you the stuff. And we are sharing it under a TLP Amber sharing protocol. If you're familiar with it, if you're not, you can go on first.org/TLP and you'll learn about it. But basically, it's you or your organization only. Please don't share publicly.
We're like 80% sure the logs themselves aren't infected, so at your own risk.
There's no PE files in the log, so I'm sure it's safe. All right, wrapping up. Almost a third of all modern compromises happen because of breached credentials or of reused credentials. So it's a huge risk, right? And so what we think a simple framework to prevent at least a good portion of these is to understand and educate users, but also IT, to protect, a couple steps to protect, and then to remediate. So let's go through them. So people need to realize admin rights are not required. So when you install a cracked version of a software and you're like, oh, it's not admin, how much harm can it do to my computer? Well, it can do a lot, as you saw today. It comes via cracked software. I cannot put enough emphasis on this. And find a source of reliable cracked software, I guess. But I know IDA Pro is expensive, but maybe use Ghidra instead. It's different malware, I guess. Malicious ads, so be careful, like the team viewer, the Slack download, if it's an ad, it's suspicious. So for this, I think you can prevent with a smart screen, which we're going to recommend later. Like free Robux videos. If your kids are into Roblox, like the free Robux stuff is almost always involve malware. Fake updates, free PDFs, like if you don't want to buy books and you want stuff, they offer downloads and stuff, so be careful. We should have poster signs in bathrooms saying there is rarely a reason to disable AV. Like end user should never disable AV. Wash your hands, don't disable AV. Don't. If what? If you love your children, don't disable AV. Yeah, that's good. That's gonna work. Don't share work computers with family members. I know it's tempting at the hotel, like just put a YouTube video to the kid, but if you're sleeping, he's gonna pivot and download some free Robux and infect your machine. It's not limited to password. This is also something that is eye-opening for many, right? It steals the password vaults and everything. And in the understand and educate part, I should have put this in bold, but study one Stealer log. Look at one. You'll get the same epiphany that I had when I stumbled upon one. It will change your life. I'm telling you. I said another word when we were rehearsing that I don't want to say here, but okay, so protect. Password managers are still effective, more than the browser-based one for this specific risk. I'm not against browser-based password manager, but you saw what happens here. Windows Smart Screen is effective against files pretending to be something else. If you have Smart Screen, a Slack, Google ad, a fake Slack will not work. Smart Screen will block it. And ad block actually prevents you from getting malware. And then remediate, we advise to go through Stealer log databases with your favorite threat exposure vendor to find the corporate accounts and then go ahead and test them. Make sure that, and oftentimes it's like former employee, just make sure that everything is steady. But also sometimes you realize you have shadow IT stuff, like that one Dropbox account that is not behind the SSO that was forgotten, but then via a Stealer log, you will find these things that are left behind, right? So that's it for me and for us. We have a booth here, so Flair is a proud sponsor of ShmooCon. If you have any questions or if you want to have access to the material, please do. We are also on social networks if you want to learn more about what we're doing. And I hope you had a good time. And we have 7 minutes for questions.
I have two questions. The first one is earlier in the talk you mentioned about, that after the first takedown, they rebuilt the version. Do you mean they just repackaged it? And have you seen any sort of evolution? Are any new sealers pivoting in existing ways?
So the question is about Redline, the takedown. After the certificate was compromised, was there an update, like changes in the malware?
In the flow, execution flow, or in any other interesting way that it changed?
So this ecosystem, like Redline specifically, it will always evolve and adapt, but this was independent to the takedown effort. So specifically for that, they just stopped signing the control panels. But independently of that, there are always changes, but it's structured pretty much the same throughout.
Then my second question was on the file harvesting. Are you seeing any, or have you followed the trails of any intellectual property stolen being sold?
So it's the question is regarding the file harvesting capabilities. Is there any PII or anything specific that was stolen? The answer is like it's file filters that are broad. They're going after like documents and everything. So it will always depend on the victim. But yes, I saw like design documents like CAD files. I saw stuff like that being exfiltrated documents. But so this is like 30 million just for Redline that we have, so I haven't looked at all of them. I'm sure there's PII and there's corporate documents, but most often, or the ones I've stumbled upon for this research, they were mostly personal files like homework and stuff like that. Good question. But I'm sure there are, and I saw design documents. We're not finished with Stealer logs. This is an endless stream of surprises. Other questions? Yes?
Yeah, so it seems like you focused on desktop here. So do you have an idea of how the volume of mobile Stealer compares to desktop Stealer, and maybe break it into Android and iOS?
So it's a good question. I'm going to repeat the question. So we focused on desktop Stealers. He says like, do we have any idea about mobile Stealers like that are targeting Android and iOS? I have to admit, I have no idea. Do we have?
I've
mobile?
never seen one.
Does it exist? Do you know if it exists?
I don't know. I'm assuming it exists for Android.
Now I want to look for it. So
It's a lot of effort compared to doing desktop Stealers.
yeah. So our view of this is. Basically, we've monitored cybercrime forums and Telegram, and we get the logs from there. So eventually, if we get Android and or iOS stuff, then we will know that it exists. But so far, we haven't actively hunt on it. So if it exists, it's shared at places that we don't monitor. But I'm like, because the damage could be interesting because it's an app, so you convince the user to install it. Once it's installed, then it could have access to everything, you know, unprivileged, which means probably like the SD card, /SD card on Android, iOS probably has an equivalent. So it's a very interesting trail to follow. But I haven't seen anything. Do we have 3 minutes left. Other questions? All right, thanks everyone.
Thank
You've been
you so
great.
much.